All right. If you're streaming live with us, until I get an autoplay feature put up there on the website, you simply on commercial breaks, we have to pause the video because we are uploading these videos to other locations, including YouTube. But in addition to that, we have to pause the video, and so what ends up happening is you just got to click the play button again. I'm going to try to put an autoplay feature on there that will enable you to just simply watch, and it will automatically come back on. But you just got to stick with us through the commercial breaks. Commercials are what keep the internet alive. If you are interested in advertising with America's Voice Now on any of our stations, then I encourage you to please send me an email to America's Voice Now. That's Mike at americasvoicenow.org. And when you send me an email, just put in there advertising, and we'll talk to you about, we'll get in touch with you and contact you about running an advertising program on any of our stations. You can be on one or you can be on all of them. And we are expanding our network and our programming daily, and our goal is to continue to reach out and educate America. We want to educate, inform, motivate, and activate American citizens to figure out what we can do to, one, prepare and become self-reliant and self-sufficient on our own. Secondarily, to restore our state to some semblance of constitutional government. And lastly, to continue to press on the federal side so that we can do the same thing. One of the things that I've been discussing, and I talked all on Friday about it, there are 4 videos up on YouTube that you must see, is why Missouri needs to separate and secede. A southern portion of Missouri needs to separate and secede from Standard Missouri. I talked about this extensively on Friday. I gave you a lot of reasons why. I gave you some ideas and outlines about what that's going to engender and how that will operate, what the benefits will be to you as a citizen of the southern state of the southern portion of Missouri. The goal is to separate ourselves from Kansas City and St. Louis, which have created so much problem in terms of, one, our political futures, but also they are such a drain on our state in terms of resources. You know, the southern portion of Missouri is mostly agricultural, and for the most part, we are burdened with taxes that and legislation that is not in the best interest of the citizens down in this area. And I know people will immediately think, well, my goodness, how are we going to possibly be able to create a separate state and fund it without taxation from St. Louis and Kansas City? Well, the simple truth is that if we look at it in a realistic viewpoint, one, we don't need that kind of money because St. Louis and Kansas City and the major cities in the state of Missouri are the primary draw and the primary sponge for those resources. And then secondarily, one of the ways that we can do that is by having a state that operates constitutionally and has the appropriate laws in place to do those things that enable businesses and industry to come here. And we can change the nature of what southern Missouri is like by effectively bringing industry and manufacturing and creating jobs in this area by not penalizing manufacturers and companies, by providing them benefits that when they come here so that the citizenry have jobs and opportunity. I believe that folks with the right goals in mind can safely and realistically put together a program and a plan that will allow us to segment and secede the southern portion of the state away from the northern portion, create a state that effectively operates as a constitutional Republican form of government in and of itself, stand alone, without all of the burden, without all of the nonsense, without all of the PC, without all of the garbage that's being handled and done to us, I should say, in Jefferson City. And I truly believe that there is a real true value in being a shining light of example for the rest of the nation. In other words, when we're successful, and I know we will be because our founders gave us the basic foundation to be successful at this, when we're successful, every other state will look and say, oh my goodness, I cannot believe what they have accomplished in a scant year or two. And so I am encouraging you to join with us. Please send me email to Mike at americasvoicenow.org, and in the subject line, put in South Missouri. In other words, this way I'll know that that email is related to the idea of secession and seceding southern Missouri away from northern Missouri. Okay? All right. The Obamacare Data Hub is a travesty. We're going to talk more about this because what they're doing is government is seeking inclusion of all the social and behavioral data on your health records. So it's not just a question of give us your financial information and give us all your health information. They're now turning doctors into the same informants I warned you about in the last segment that you will be turned into. In other words, they're using the nudge principle of Cass Sunstein to force everyone, and in every respect, in every way in which they are an element of our society, to become rats and traitors and informants for the federal government. Now, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services are now going to require healthcare providers to include social and behavioral data in the electronic health records. And one of the things that just came out the other day, and this came out in the New York Post, is Obamacare is now going to question you on your sex life. Really? You got to be kidding me. I mean, what does the federal government care who and where and how often you're sleeping with somebody? I mean, that's none of their business, first and foremost. But one of the questions that you'll be required to answer when you go to your doctor's office is, are you sexually active? If so, with one partner, multiple partners, or same-sex partners? Now, let's be honest. First of all, nobody's going to probably answer that truthfully. But that's not really the point. The point is, when you see this kind of information coming out, you have to realize that the goal here is to gather information that is going to be deleterious to your own benefit. So be ready to answer these questions the next time you go to the doctor. And here's the problem. It's not just the doctor. It's every doctor that you go to. They're putting this on the application forms for a dermatologist, for a cardiologist, for an ear, eye, nose, and throat guy, for the bone doctor you go to when you slip and get a sprain, or break a leg. These are questions that have absolutely nothing to do with the particular practice of medicine that you're going for. A New York cardiologist named Adam Budzikowski came out and said, "This is a nasty business. It is insensitive, stupid, and very intrusive." Now, here's what they come out and say. The president's reforms aim to turn doctors into government agents, pressuring them financially to ask questions they consider inappropriate and unnecessary, and to violate their own Hippocratic oath to keep a patient's record confidential. Embarrassing though it may be, you confide things to a doctor you wouldn't tell anyone else. And that's true. But in this case, it's entirely different. The doctors and hospitals who will not comply with the federal government's electronic health record requirement are going to forego payments from in 2015, they're going to face fines, penalties, and restriction and withholding of payments from Medicare and Medicaid. So the Department of Health and Human Services will basically turn around and say, if you don't ask these questions, you will not get paid. Now, in my last segment, I talked about how federal government is going to use the information in the database that they're building on you individually to turn you into an informant for federal purposes. Is this any different? Is this not an exact proof of everything that I made in every claim I made in the last segment? Of course it is. It is exactly the same thing. What's happening is everyone is being turned into a potential snitch. That's the goal. This is going to be a nation of snitches. Your doctor will be a snitch. Your grocery store owner will be a snitch. Your credit card company is a snitch. Your internet provider is a snitch. You see, your neighbor will be a snitch. They'll be telling them, yes, this guy's got guns. That one's got food stored up. This one over here doesn't comply with Obamacare. This one over here, he doesn't cut his grass as often as he's supposed to. Don't you smell it? This is the same thing that happened in Nazi Germany. It's the same thing that happened in fascist Italy. This is the same thing that happened in Stalinist Russia. It's the same thing that happens in communist China. It's the same thing that happened in the Soviet Union. This is a police state growing right underneath your feet, and you are ignoring the truth and the reality of that moment. I don't know what more you're waiting for. I truly cannot understand what would make Americans sit here and ignore the obvious truth. Doctors and hospitals that don't comply will be penalized and fined. You know what they actually say to them? To people who are complaining about this? If you don't like it, pay cash. Really? How many people out there can pay cash for a doctor's visit? I mean, if it's something other than just a basic, wellness checkup and an office visit, which might cost you $50, $80, $150. And even then, after you've been forced into Obamacare, to have to pay cash in order to remain private is unconscionable. There's only one question, by the way, that they cannot ask. And that is, they cannot ask you if you own a firearm. Now, many of them will anyway, because people are stupid and they will fill out anything that's on a form thinking that information is private under the HIPAA laws and all the rest of that crap. But the truth is, many of them will put it on there. Are there firearms at present in your home? But there is a law that prohibits them from asking that, so you can safely answer no. What you have to recognize is basically this. The answer should be no to all of this anyway, by simply opting out and refusing to participate. If every American said, we're not going to sign up, that's it, we're not playing games, we're not playing with you, you can take this ball game and you can play it by yourselves, all two of you. That's not enough to formulate a team, and therefore the whole thing is going to collapse and the game will end. But Americans have to do this en masse as a collective unit. We have to refuse to sign up for Obamacare. We must opt out. We must opt out as a collective unit and say, we the people are speaking here. We're just not going to play. And you can't get our representatives in Washington to betray us, because this doesn't require them to do something on our behalf. We are saying no on our own behalf. If you are one of those people that sits around and says, I am sick and tired of how my representative betrays me in D.C. or in Jefferson City or your state capital, this is the perfect example for you to simply bypass them and get your point across anyway. Refuse to sign up. Opt out before you even have to opt in. Now, there's a nephrologist and an associate professor at Albert Einstein Medical College. His name is Dr. Richard Ammerling. And he explains that your medical record should be, quote, a story created by you and your doctor solely for your treatment and benefit. But the new requirements are turning it into an interrogation, and the data will not be confidential. Now, we know that it won't be confidential because it's going into the Obamacare Medical Data Hub. And we also know that the Obamacare Data Hub is not secure. In fact, I've given you other stories in previous shows about the fact that they will not even have their security available for testing until the day before it is required to go live by law. Now, we also know that once you submit that data to the hub, literally thousands upon thousands upon thousands of independent contractors and corporations will get your personal data. And what are they going to do with it? They're going to sell it, or they're going to use it against you. The insurance company, who now knows that you've been out there concerned about some kind of a lymphoma, is going to raise your life insurance rate because they know that you think you've got cancer and you want to apply for life insurance before it's diagnosed. These are the real practical applications of what this does. And you're not even considering it. You're sitting there blithely ignorant, refusing to acknowledge the fact that we live in a police state and they just have not announced it to you on the Ministry of Propaganda, the mainstream media's voice to the people. I don't get it. I don't understand it. How can you be so blind? How can you be so ignorant? How can you be so unwilling to stand up for your own protection in your own life? Lack of confidentiality is such a significant portion of this that doctors around the country are clamoring, but the mainstream press will not tell you this. They are screaming bloody murder about how this is a violation of their Hippocratic oath, and it is a violation of the privacy rights of American citizens. The ACLU is out there filing lawsuits, and nobody's talking about that. I mean, they'll tell you, the ACLU, you get the story when they defend a guy who was having sex with his dog or something stupid like that. But when it comes to this kind of thing, the press won't even let you know that the ACLU is out there fighting on your behalf. I'm no real big fan of the ACLU, but in certain instances, they're doing a good job on things, and this is one of them. Lack of confidentiality concerns the American Civil Liberties Union and the New York Civil Liberties Union in a 2012 report. Electronic medical records have enormous benefits, but with one click of a mouse, every piece of information in a patient's record, including their new social history, is transmitted, which is disclosing far too much. The social history questions include, have you ever used drugs? Have you ever used IV drugs? Have you ever had an STD? Have you ever had sex with multiple partners, same-sex partners? Do you have a past drug problem? If so, what was it? What did you do? What did you take? How did you cure it? Did you cure it? Did you ever go to rehab? I mean, come on, guys. This is unbelievable. I mean, to me, that America will not stop this by simply opting out is so deeply concerning to me, because they're sitting there voting with their own bet. Well, I need Obamacare. I have no other health insurance. Hey, let me tell you something. I don't have health insurance either. And I have medical needs that need to be met just like you, just like your wife, just like your husband, just like your sister, just like your brother, just like your neighbor, just like your friend. But I'm telling you right now, I'm not willing to concede your independence, your liberty, your freedom for my personal benefit. And that's what you need to recognize, acknowledge, and begin to act like. That's that simple. You have to stop saying, but there's something in it for me, so I'm willing to sell you out as a nation, as my neighbor, as my friend, as my family member, for my personal benefit. Is life so sweet? Is peace so dear that you would willingly put your hands into the handcuffs and the chains of slavery? Forbid it not, Almighty God. Give me liberty or give me death. And the truth of the matter is, most Americans just don't have the courage to stand up. The New York Post has got an article out there that says, and this is press now. It's rare when they come out and say this, and it's always at the bottom of the article, so that most people don't even read the whole thing. They just skim the top and then they click off before they get a chance to finish the whole article. But patients need to defend their own privacy by refusing to answer the intrusive social history questions. If you need to confide something pertaining to your treatment, ask your doctor. This is an actual suggestion, by the way, from the author, who is a woman who wrote a book called Beating Obamacare. Ask your doctor about keeping 2 sets of books so that your secrets stay in his office. Doctors take the Hippocratic Oath seriously and shouldn't be offended. And by the way, if your doctor is offended, find yourself another doctor. It's that simple. If your you've heard me say this before about your church. If your minister refuses to allow you to talk about politics in church, and you've questioned him and he refuses to give you an answer about whether or not he is a member of the DHS's clergy response teams, find yourself another church. You have to start voting with your feet and your actions, not just your mouth. She goes on to say, are such precautions paranoid? Hardly. WikiLeaker Bradley Manning showed how incompetent the government is in keeping its own secrets. Incidents where various agencies have accidentally disclosed personal data like Social Security numbers are legion and rampant. And that's not to mention the ways in which commercial databases are prone to hacking and or exploitation. Be careful about sharing your medical secrets with Uncle Sam. She goes on to ask a couple of pertinent questions. And I'm asking this of my audience, and then I want you to turn around and I want you to find one person, in your circle of influence who is one of these people that stands up for these social causes all the time. Where are the women's rights groups that went to the barricades in the 80s and the 90s to prevent the federal government from accessing a woman's health records? Where are they? These women, the National Organization of Women and all of these different women's organizations, the women's women's liberty organizations, they went berserk and haywire when the federal government wanted to look at their pregnancy and their birth and their abortion records back in the 80s and the 90s. Where are they today? You see, those people who back then were saying, stick it to the man, baby, they've now become the man. I want you to find someone in your circle of influence who is a liberal, a progressive, a leftist, whatever you want to call them, whatever label you give them. And I want you to ask them some very serious, qualified questions. And those questions are, Where are you standing now on the issue of privacy, on the issue of these dossiers that are being built on us, on the issue of the NSA and healthcare and Obamacare building dossiers on American citizens? I want you to ask them that question. I want you to do your homework and have a questions list and a whole bunch of answers ready and prepared, so that irrespective of what their answer is, if they say, I don't believe in that, then they should be putting their money where their mouth is and fighting with you against it. Instead of sitting there and disagreeing on whether or not you like Obama or gay marriage or this or that or immigration or any of these other issues, let's find those areas where you are in line with your political opponents and then work towards resolving that with them in concert as an ally and not an enemy. In other words, put out those areas that you have a disagreement on and challenge your political opponent, those people who believe opposingly different to you politically. These are the people that you can't normally open up the topic of conversation and of politics with at a dinner meeting or having a beer, because it always turns into a heated argument. So what I'm suggesting is that you find those people in your life who you know that are out there, and then you sit there and take that information. You compile a list of questions that you want to go to them with. You make sure you've done your homework and you've got a lot of empirical evidence that proves that what's happening is the stuff I assert, and there's tons of it on our website and on our Facebook page. And then I want you to ask them, where are you and why aren't you fighting on these issues like freedom from oppression, freedom from our databases being built on us, and our privacy in terms of our health care? You know, the liberal group are the ones who are staunchly defending your privacy, and they're getting no credit for it. Meanwhile, the conservatives, the alleged rhinos out there, are the ones who are sitting there selling you down the river. And then I want you to take this same questionnaire, and I want you to go to those people who sit there and classify themselves as a party player, and I want you to ask them the same questions. And I want you, in this case, to challenge them, because these people are the ones who normally will engage you in a political conversation, but always carry the party water pail. And I want you to challenge them as well and say, where are you on this issue, and why aren't you willing to defend me? Well, it's really not, they're not going to do something dangerous and nefarious with all that information. You know what? That's just such a bunch of bollocks. I don't buy it. I don't believe it. It's a lie. It's the standard excuse you get from those who are willingly selling you down the river. And if that's their opinion, you need to say to them, this is what's wrong with party politics. You, my former friend, because you were my friend an hour ago, but now you're a former friend because you are a political opponent of mine now. Because you're unwilling to stand up and do that which you know to be right, not only for your own defense, but for my defense. And that tells me you're more interested in party line politics than you are in what's right. And you have no integrity, and you have no honor, and you have no faith, and you have no credibility anymore. It's time for Americans to recognize, stand up, and voice their opposition. Stop being afraid of the bully. Stop being afraid of the bully's assistant who's coercing you and telling you, like a good cop, bad cop game, to do what you're told by the political parties. Don't forget, the bully is your own party. And the people who are telling you, you just better do what he says, they're the people you used to align yourself with. But your eyes are open. Your mind is awake, and you see the writing on the wall for yourself. Will you sit there with it in silence, knowing what it means? Or will you begin to challenge the beliefs and ideas of those around you? You must have prepared arguments and documentation to back up your claims, because they won't for their excuses. And that means you win every single time. Take the time to go print some stuff out, whether it's mine or something you find somewhere else, and demand answers from those who demand that you toe the line. You demand that they toe the line of liberty and freedom. and that they back up their claims and assertions with the same empirical proof you've got. I want you to make sure that you attend the ham radio course cranking up on Saturdays. You can go there by going to the South Howell County Ambulance Department in West Plains. It's every Saturday morning at 9 o'clock. At the end of that class, it's like a number of weeks. I think it's 8 or 12 weeks. You'll be able to apply for a ham radio license. Make sure that you're participating in that. Jump on our website and jump on Facebook, and we'll have details up there for you about it, including a phone number for you to call. I don't have it right here on the sheet in front of me. You're listening to America's Voice Now. Find us on the web at americasvoicenow.org, facebook.com/America's Voice Now, and youtube.com/America's Voice Now.